Yeah.
Chapter 5. What is real estate? Who can tell me what is real estate? Yes. You don't know.
Like the buying and selling of properties, like.
That's the buying of selling your properties?
Right.
No.
Houses.
Nope. That's brokering. Houses? That's real estate? Nope. Property? Property. Property that you own. Because estate, please write somewhere. Estate means asset, ownership, property that you own. So it's not the buying and selling of it, it's the owning of it. Real estate. Okay? And it's not house because it could be land.
Yes.
So it's property in general, and we call that real property. Now there's personal property and there's real property. Okay? Real estate is real property, land and a house that you own. Got it? So, if you scroll down on the right-hand side, it says real property ownership is often described as a bundle of rights. Real property ownership, or real estate, is often described as a bundle of rights. When a person purchases a parcel of real estate, he or she is actually buying the rights previously held by the seller. See, you don't own anything physically, you own rights to it. Because a house is not like you can put it on your back and take it with you. It has to stay there. So you gain rights to the property. And these rights are the right of possession. There are 5 rights. Right of possession, right to use the property in any legal manner, the right of enjoyment, go to the next page, the right of exclusion, that means to keep others from entering or occupying the property, and the right of disposition or alienation. You got to know these 5 rights. Got to know these 5 rights. Very, very important. Because that's all you bought. You bought rights to something. Okay? Now, within these ownership rights is included further rights to improve, devise, which means leave by will, to mortgage, encumber, cultivate, explore, mine, build, lease, license, dedicate, give away, abandon, share, trade, or exchange. So you can do all of these things because you have rights to it. Does that make sense? Okay. You see where it says devise? It says that means leave by will or transfer by will. Where it says lease, right here, it says lease. Chris, can you do me a quick favor? Can you open the door downstairs, please? I'll stop for a second. Huh? You better bring pizza.
Yeah, not for you.
Anyway, so where it says lease, just put a circle around it and an arrow towards the empty space. Arrow towards the empty space. And you're going to write something there. I'm just waiting for Chris to get it. You're going to write something there. Where it says lease. Where it says lease, you're going to put an arrow towards the empty space. And you're going to write demise, which I'll repeat in a second. Write demise. D-E-M-I-S-E. It's the same thing as devise, but with M for Mary. Okay?
You were trying to keep us out of there?
Nobody
We're
told you
that
to leave. Did you bring the pizza for everybody?
No, we didn't wait. It was enough
They didn't want to
time.
work, literally.
All right. So, Chris, sorry, you lost this, so I wanted to tell you. Where it says lease, I was telling you to put a circle and an arrow towards the empty space. Write demise.
Oh, only him, not even.
Well, he caught that part and then he left to open the door. So what's the difference between devise and demise? Devise is transfer property by lease, as it says right there. Demise is transfer property, by will. The demise is transfer property by lease. So when the rental is up, you transfer the property to another person, and that is called demise. I want you to remember this because it's going to be mentioned a couple of times in the book. Demise and devise. Devise, will. Demise, lease. Okay? Now, land versus real estate. Can you guys tell me the difference between land and real estate without reading? Without reading. Anybody?
Land.
I say without reading, they're looking.
Land
and real
is
estate.
just a land with no property.
Okay,
Real estate is with the property.
correct. So,
A building,
uh,
whenever like.
when something is built on it, yeah. So let's go through land first. It says the term land refers to the surface of the earth. The surface of the earth, including water and anything attached to it by nature, such as trees and bushes, and it also includes the minerals and substances below the earth's surface, together with the airspace above the earth's surface up to infinity and beyond.
Okay, but like.
On and off, up and down.
Up and down. You own the moon, you own all the way to the core. It's yours. Hmm? What?
Like you read that bedtime story every day.
Every time. Infinity and beyond. I'm trying to tell my kids they own a portion of the moon. That's it. All right. Thus, land may be defined as the earth extending downward from the surface to the center of the earth and upward to infinity. Please highlight, pay attention to this. It says, including all things permanently attached by nature. In front of by nature, I want you to write only. Nature only. That's going to be the difference between land and real estate. If you read the question, and the question says, there's a patch of land and there's rocks and trees and all that, there's no evidence of anything that was man-made, okay? If it was nature only, then that is the definition of land. You got it? If the question mentions anything that's nature only, that's land. So real estate, the term real estate includes land as defined above and also all man-made improvements. Make sure you put stars there. All man-made improvements. The word improvement, every time you hear improvement, includes both buildings erected on the land and streets, utilities, sewers, and other manufactured additions to the property. So if the question says, and I'm going to go with the most basic thing, it's a piece of land that's been paved. Did nature pave it? No. So there was an improvement to the land, there's an addition, and that addition was man-made, it was not nature. Does that make sense? So the moment there's an addition that is man-made, it is now considered real estate. And to make it simple, why would you improve land if it wasn't yours? You're improving property, it becomes real property or real estate because it's an asset. You don't go to your neighbor's property and say, hey, today's a good day to build a house there. Do you? No, you buy it. So it becomes ownership, therefore, man-made improvements on that property, it becomes real estate. Good? Yes? Unless you guys like to do stuff like that. That's a good property. Now, on the right-hand side on top, it says real estate then is defined as the earth's surface extending downwards to the center of the earth and upward into space, including all things permanently attached to it by nature or by people, and all rights, benefits, and interests in it. Good? Questions? Any questions?
So, real estate, so, can you explain that a little bit more? Like, if it's something like, right here, an example, like all the time, on the ground, like.
So, earth's surface,
Uh-huh.
anything above, anything below is yours. Land. Okay, you bought that piece of land or the rights to the land, everything above, anything below, within your piece of land is yours. But that's just land. The moment there's pipes running water, right? The moment that it gets paved, the moment that there's a house on top, a garage or anything like that, it becomes real estate. It's still from the surface down to the center of the earth, and from the surface up. Anything on it, anything under it is yours. So land versus real estate, the only difference between these is whether there's improvements or not. Got it? Good. Okay. Now, I told you that surface down, right? So there's something called subsurface rights. Anything below the surface, you do have rights to those. So it says the rights to the natural resources lying below the earth's surface, these are called subsurface or mineral rights and may be owned separately. The example here says that a landowner, for example, may sell his or her rights to any oil or gas found in the land to an oil company. Because it's my right, I can say, hey, here's the oil for you to explore. Does that make sense? This is my house, right? This is my land, and here there's oil. I don't have the machine, so why not give it to an oil company to drill for oil? You guys got that? Okay. It also says that the landowner could then sell the land to a purchaser. So I can sell it to you, but in the sale I say, hey, any coal that may be found on the land belongs to me. I'm the seller. You're going to be the new owner. But any coal that's found on the land is mine. See, I'm selling these rights separately. You own the property, but I own the rights to something that's under the property, and somebody else owns the rights to the oil that's under the property, if there is any.
What's the coal? What's coal?
Coal? How do you say in Spanish? Can I say in Spanish? No, I don't remember. But coal, where you get diamonds from?
Coal is like carbon material,
Oh,
carbon
yeah.
rock that they use to.
Yeah.
Find diamonds.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you spell
I
it?
thought it was coal.
Just
Huh?
know that just spell it.
Right there. So the whole is all called C-O-A-L.
C-O-A-L, it's right there.
C-O-L? Okay.
C-O-A-L.
A-L.
A-L, okay.
But, yeah, so anything that's underneath belongs to them. It's right there. So after these sales, listen, after, children, after these sales, 3 parties have ownership interest in real estate. 1, the oil company owns the right to oil, all the oil and gas because they're drilling for it, so it's theirs. We already got paid or will get paid a portion for everything that they extract, right? The seller, which was me, sold to you guys, and I kept the rights to all the coal, correct? But you, the new owner, have the rights to the rest of the real estate. So you still own the house, you own the garage, the pool, and everything. It's just that these things, if they're found on the land, they belong to other parties, not
And
you.
they have to specify.
That's going to be part of the deeds, which is very important for the chapter coming on Monday, because once you transfer the deed, the person that buys it is also buying these rights, or buying the property minus these rights that the oil company has and the previous seller has.
And that can take the value of that property?
Absolutely, it alters the value. Yep. Next we have air rights. So I told you surface, right? Anything below is subsurface or mineral rights. Anything above is air rights. Okay? Anything from the surface up to infinity and beyond. Those are air rights. That's ridiculous. Air rights are awesome.
Like example, like, put an example of.
I'm getting there.
They have an art.
So, so air rights. It says right here, children, it says right here, such air rights are an increasingly important part of real estate, particularly in large cities, where air rights over railroads have been used to construct huge office buildings, such as New York City MetLife building, for example. So what they're doing is, if you look at New York, you get these best examples. You have the skyscrapers, right? These really, really tall buildings. And then tiny buildings around them. Tiny compared to the tall building, right? These tiny buildings around. The developer of that really, really tall building decided, you know what? We want to be the tallest and have the penthouse views, which are going to be worth a lot of money. So I'm going to pay you, the property next to mine, to stay below a certain height. You cannot develop above it. So I'm buying the air rights to your property. And I'm going to pay you to do the same and you to do the same. So everybody around me stays at this level while I get to be at this level with penthouse views. So people are paying millions of dollars for what?
There.
Air.
Ooh,
Exactly.
who are those people?
I know.
But they buy it at once.
Go find them. I mean,
They buy it at once. It's not like it's like I pay you this much for
Yeah.
you not to.
Oh no, that depends on the agreement. We're going to talk about it also in chapter 9.
Please.
We're going to talk in chapter 9. There's some agreements that are for like a 15-year period or a 20-year period. I just want my money now. Later on, let the owner of that penthouse suite deal with you, not me. I'm the developer, I'm just building. Do you guys understand? Some of them are lifetime. It depends on how good I was negotiating with you. Others, 20 years, 30 years. So after 30 years, what can you do?
I buy the building and then you
Build
start
up.
building and I'm like, wait, you can do that. I'm like, no.
Yeah, now you have a shade. That's it. Right? You pay $10 million to 20 years later have a shade. Nice. Anyway, so that's air rights. Next we have on the next page, water rights. Water rights. So, you have subsurface mineral rights, we have air rights, and now we have water rights. What is water rights? Is rights to any water that borders your property. Okay? So, land bordering on oceans, seas, or large lakes are affected by tide currents is known as littoral. Land bordered or traversed by a stream or waterway is known as riparian. An easy way to remember, I put it in green, an easy way to remember. This distinction is that littoral rights refers to lakes or large bodies of water. So every time you see littoral, it starts with an L. It's the same thing as lakes, because it starts with an L. Think about standing water, water that doesn't have a current, littoral, okay? Riparian rights refers to rivers, streams, and waterways. So riparian starts with R, river starts with R, river has a stream. Every time you see something with a stream, you talk about riparian, okay? Questions? No? Cool. Now, something to remember, it says here, if a stream is identified as not navigable on the federal survey map, its bed is owned by the owner or the owners of the adjoining lands, who have certain riparian rights that allow them to use the water. So normally, on the right-hand side, when two properties have a stream as their common border, the dividing line between the two properties is the middle of the stream. So if I own riparian rights, what divides my property from yours, and there's a river in between, what divides our properties is the middle of the stream. So I get half of the river, you get the other half of the river. Okay? If the stream were to suddenly change its course, which is a process known as avulsion, the property line would not move, but would remain where it always had been. So it doesn't matter how the stream goes, your property ends in the middle of that stream. Next we have accretion. Where it says accretion, I want you to write addition. Where it says accretion, I want you to write addition. You're adding or increasing land. Accretion is an increase of land. When you hear accretion, it's an increase or addition or gaining of land. And this is called by the gradual deposit of a solid material called alluvion by a contiguous body of water. This is the opposite of erosion. Erosion is loss of land. Accretion is gain, addition, or increase of land. Erosion is loss of land. Now this is natural. Okay? Mother Nature decided to take property or give property. Then we have reliction. Now reliction is a little bit different. Somebody did this. Reliction is the creation of dry land by the gradual withdrawal of water from the land by lowering of its surface level. Reliction is withdrawal of water. So you're gaining land because you took water, so now there's land, exposure. Okay? So accretion, erosion, natural. Remember that, natural. Earth and nature did that, not you. Reliction is man-made. We took water, created land. So like they're doing in the Meadowlands, for instance, like they did on Ferry Street. Look at Dubai as an example.
Yeah.
Okay? Say it again.
No, I'm saying it is a big example.
Dubai is the biggest example.
Yeah.
Okay? It was not there, and all of a sudden, poof. Very expensive and careful. Don't go there. No, I'm not saying don't go there, just be careful.
I'm going there.
Be careful. Only because of cultures, nothing else. It's like if you're not ready, when you go to some other country, make sure you know the culture. Because I heard some people went there and the result was not that pretty. They thought they could do the same things they do here.
Oh, no.
Every culture is different, so you gotta be careful.
Yeah.
You gotta dress a certain way, not the way you want. I mean, it's like me going
Not
to
only
your
that,
house.
Now, like
right?
even in the hotel, it's a lot of things.
Well, inside the hotel, your room is okay.
Your room and what about the pool?
The pool?
That's
I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just telling you what people told me about their experience. They had a lot of fun as long as they're within limits,
Yeah.
right? And finding the same crowd, like you have to go after a certain crowd.
That's weird.
Other than that, they say it's beautiful.
I think that's
No,
just when you go
yeah.
out of the hotel.
Somebody just told me recently that when they got there, they had to look to where all the foreigners were and try to follow the crowd. Otherwise, they could actually get in trouble.
Yeah, they keep them on the outside, they don't do that like.
Yep.
Outside.
That's what I'm saying. All right. Real property versus personal property. Real property versus personal property. Everything that can be owned may be classified as either real or personal property. And anything that can be inherited is what?
Every bit of it.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce that word.
That's how you pronounce it? Can anybody tell me how it is?
Every bit of it. That looks pretty. Read it to it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Don't try my English.
Don't try my English. All right. So this is the first example for me to tell you. It doesn't matter how it's pronounced. You'll never talk about it again. You just need it for a state exam. Okay? Simple.
So when you see inherited, just think that weird word and circle that one.
That's it. You think inheritance, it's that weird word.
How do you say it?
Wait,
So real estate or real property,
Oh, he doesn't.
wait, hold on.
I don't,
In which, like, what kind of question I will find this?
inheritance. You have real property, personal property. What is an inheritance? Hereditary.
Yeah, I read it.
What is it?
I read it.
Hereditary?
No,
Hers or his?
I read it.
Hers or his?
Her read it.
Oh.
That's how.
Hereditary. You see how it is?
Look,
We can't
look,
win.
I'm saying it. Her read it. There you go. Look, her read it.
You forgot the T.
It's silent. Like the T.
It's silent.
Her read it.
All right. Now, real estate or real property has already been defined as the Earth's surface, including permanent additions and growing things attached to it, the airspace above it and minerals below it, right? Now, personal property. So we talked about real property, now it's personal property, which is also called personality, is all property that does not fit the definition of real property. Was that clear? One is the opposite of the other. Simple, right?
Okay.
This is the one sentence I wish they didn't have here, because then they explain. They do explain. It says, while real estate is fixed and immovable, personal property is movable. Okay? So that's the difference between them. Real property is fixed. Personal property is movable. My cell phone is personal property. My laptop is personal property. This right here, this stand is personal property. The chairs are personal property. But this right here, real property. Real property. Real property. Does that make sense? Yes. A mobile home, we're getting there. It could actually be movable as long as it has its axle. Once it's removed off its axle, it becomes real property. Now, tangible personal property is also referred to as chattels. Now, you can say chattels, you can say chattels if you want to sound fancy. I really don't care how you pronounce it. Chattels, right? Like channel, number 5, right?
No.
That's not how you say it? Chanel, no, it's channel, number 5.
No, Chanel.
No, you don't say
No,
Chanel.
Chanel number 5.
No, that's no.
Right? That's a perfume.
Yeah, channel.
Chanel.
I know how it is. What I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter how you say it. Okay? Here's something I want you to remember. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Chattels. Think of cattle. Why cattle? Because it's movable.
Oh, Lord.
I know, but it works. It's movable. It's personal property and it moves.
Wait, the cow?
To remember chattels.
Cattle is like animals.
You
Cattle.
said cow.
I said cattle.
No, he did not say
I
cattle.
never said cattle.
And
I
then you
said
said
move.
moo.
He said,
And for some,
So-
like,
Right here, where it says chattels. Okay, right there.
I like my dog.
It's something for you to remember. I don't care how corny it is, as long as it sticks in your mind when you go take the exam, that's what matters. So what are we talking about? We're talking about furniture, clothing, refrigerators, bonds as an example. So anything that's movable is considered chattels or cattle or chattels or Chanel or chattel. Doesn't matter. As long as you know what it is. Why do you need to know the difference between these? Why do you need to know what's real property and what's personal property?
Because you need
Sometimes
to
when
know
you sell personal property with the real.
Correct. So you need to know what goes with the property and what does not. It's very important because I could sell the property including all this stuff. Okay? Or I could sell the property without, which is the most common. So it says right here, buyers must be guided to a clear written agreement about what goes with the property being sold and also the methods of transfer. Highlight, underline, put stars. The method of transfer differs because real property ownership is transferred through a deed. That's the document that transfers the ownership of the property itself, the real property, right? But if it's personal property, all these items right here, they're transferred through what's called a bill of sale. Does anybody know what a bill of sale is? Have you ever seen one?
Yeah,
Okay, you're shaking your head. I know you've seen one. I can bet right now that you've seen a bill of sale before.
Or then if I saw it, I didn't know that that's what it was.
Ah. Have you been to the supermarket, bought something there?
Yes.
Did they get a receipt, itemized of what it is? Oh, bill of sale.
Okay.
They're all
Wait.
personal items now.
We know
It's
that-
yours. It's a receipt.
Yeah, we know it. We don't know it as bill of sale. That's what I'm saying.
I know,
It's
and
more like fancy.
I know, but I'm trying to relate to what it is.
I know.
Because you go to Home Depot, you buy some material, and when you buy the material, they itemize what you just bought. That becomes personal property. It used to be the Home Depot personal property. It's now your personal property. And when you bring it to the house and you start putting up, that personal property becomes real property. You see what I'm trying to say? So bill of sale is for the itemized personal property that you just acquired. Real property is transferred by deed. That's why you gotta know the difference between them. Okay? Now, it's possible to change the status of an item of real estate to personal property. For instance, a tree is real estate, right? Because it's part of the property, right? Okay? It's not movable. Is a tree movable?
I mean,
Yeah.
Not while it's attached.
It's removable.
It's removable. But while it's attached, it's real estate. Once it's removed, it becomes personal property. And the reverse situation is possible. I gave you the example of Home Depot. We bring the 2x4s, the sheetrock, all that stuff. It's personal property until it gets here. Once we start putting it up, it becomes permanently attached to the land and is now considered real property. Questions here? Good. Awesome.
But you always look at me like, she's the one who never understands.
No, I look at everybody. Felt guilty?
No, I didn't say that.
But I thought a tree would be considered on the land side because it's part of
But isn't land real property if I own it? It's part of the real property.
Say it again.
Okay. If I buy the land, it becomes real property.
Okay, then.
I own it.
Right.
Okay? I own real property. You either own real property or you own personal property. Real property is fixed. Personal property is movable. The land is fixed, doesn't go anywhere. The tree is fixed, doesn't go anywhere. The rocks are fixed, don't go anywhere. Does that make sense? But they can be moved out of there or removed out of there. Okay? Now, vegetation, since you're asking that, vegetation right at the bottom falls into two classes. We have trees and perennial bushes and grasses that do not require cultivation. These are considered real estate. Anything that does not require cultivation is considered real estate. Annual crops, such as wheat, corn, and garden vegetables, are known as implements, and these are considered personal property. Anything that requires cultivation is considered personal property. So for instance, if I'm planting trees with the intent of removing them later and selling them, like pine trees for Christmas, what am I doing? Cultivating, it becomes personal property. Okay, that's the intent. Cool. On the right-hand side on top, Ms. Jones, to answer your question, a mobile home, unless it has been removed from its axle, right, and permanently attached to the land by foundation, it's considered personal property. So if the axle is there, the wheels are there, it's movable, it's personal property. Once we remove the axles and permanently attach to the land, it becomes real property. If you guys want to deal with these, just know you also got to deal with motor vehicle commission. So now you got to know real estate law and DMV. Okay? But there's a lot of money in these. They're easy sales because they're cheap. And they're forced, thanks to Mount Laurel 1 and Mount Laurel 2, they're forced to be everywhere. Money.
Alaska is pretty much mobile homes.
Well, Mount Laurel in Alaska is a little tough.
That's what I'm saying, like,
Probably. I don't know. Never been to Alaska.
I live there.
You live there? Mobile homes?
It's very common. It's like more mobile homes than actual homes.
Really?
And they're very, very
I have a very good friend of mine, a childhood friend that lives in Alaska. Never asked him that.
yeah.
Now I got something to ask about Alaska. You know, when you hear Alaska, I think like almost like North Pole, like just
Well, when I was in 5th grade and they used to talk about Alaska, I used to be like, I'll never live there.
right.
Yeah, never say never.
That's right. Fixtures. Have you guys ever heard of the term fixture without reading? Fixtures. Give me examples of fixtures that you know.
Lamp.
Lamp? No.
No, she.
Chandelier.
Shelves in a store, fixtures.
Shelves in the store, they're fixtures as well. So it's anything, an article that was once personal property but has been so attached to the land or to a building that is now considered to be part of it, it's a fixture.
That is so attached.
For instance, light fixtures, aren't they attached? But they're removable.
But they're so attached.
They're so attached, they're not just like, it's not like a painting. They become almost part of it.
Yeah.
Light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, right? It says right there at the bottom. Heating systems, elevated equipment, kitchen cabinets, built-in dishwashers. These are attached. It's not something that you remove every day. Like a painting, I'll put it here, tomorrow I can move it over there. Are you moving the whole kitchen around every day? No. So these become fixtures. So almost any item that has been added as a permanent part of the building is considered a fixture. Now, we have the landlord's fixtures, or the owner of the property's fixtures, but we also have tenant and trade fixtures. You talked about shelves in the store, that's a trade fixture. Okay? The projector is a trade fixture. Why? Because they're permanently attached. For now, they're attached, but they're removable, right? So they're fixtures. But therefore, to conduct my business. So I need the projector in order to conduct my business. At a barber shop, they need to have the chairs, the sinks, for instance, at a salon. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
These are trade fixtures. Every time you hear trade fixture, remember tools of the trade. For you to conduct your business, you need these. Okay, trade fixtures, business. So it says right here, An article owned by a tenant and attached to a rented space for use in conducting a business is a trade fixture. Skip the next sentence and it says, tenants must remove their trade fixtures before the termination of their lease. Any fixtures that are not removed after the lease expires become the real property of the landlord. So if I don't remove this projector out of here when the lease expires, he can change the locks because, hey, lease expired, it's no longer mine. And guess what? Everything inside belongs to the landlord. You got it? So before lease expires, I have to remove everything. Next page, and you guys can see summary right there, so you guys can relax.
Really, that's just like.
Quicker. See quicker. Huh?
When you lease
What?
a car
Uh-huh.
and you get the television put in the seat,
Hmm.
and then you have to give it back. They get to keep that, right?
The television?
The
You put
blue
TVs on
in the seat.
Yeah.
Okay. People still do
No,
that?
no, no, yeah. There's like cars that have like TVs on like
DVD screen.
They still do that? I think now
Oh,
it's
no,
tablets
it's
and
not as
stuff.
popular anymore. But
Of
Well,
course.
yeah, it's not as popular.
Or they
but
come
Now
with
it's
it.
tablets, Netflix and stuff.
That's not my question, but
They
like.
come with it.
Yeah, some of the cars come with it.
Right. We can't just watch Netflix without the thing. Where's the monitor?
Tablets.
Okay, so.
Anyway, so your question is if you install a TV or it came with it?
You install it in the leased vehicle and you give the vehicle back, like that.
You can
down
do this.
there.
Did you get authorization to do that?
I mean, I didn't do that, my dad did it.
No, I'm asking you. What, no.
No.
My question is, was there authorization to do it?
They have to have some authorization to do.
So if you don't have any authorization, you must restore the property to the original condition. And careful, because if it's not operational in the original condition, you're still liable for it. Okay, I'm gonna show that right now,
I
actually.
don't know what happened.
But by the way, cars and real estate, different things.
If you lease a
Uh,
car, you gotta return it to the same condition you bought it.
Okay, but he didn't.
Or that if it is rental.
He didn't.
So then you get penalized for the changes. Now, trade fixtures, they differ from the other fixtures in the following ways. Fixtures that belong to the owner of real estate, fixtures belong to the owner of real estate, but trade fixtures are usually owned by and installed by the tenant for his or her business use. Fixtures are considered a permanent part of a building, but trade fixtures are removable. The tenant must, however, we were just talking about it, restore the property to its original condition before the end of the lease. Fixtures are legally considered real estate, but trade fixtures are legally considered to be personal property. You have to know this. It might be a question. I did not highlight it, but it might be a question in this coming exam. The exams are always changing. I'm just letting you know. There might be a question there. Fixtures belong to the landlord, but trade fixtures, up front, when you sign the lease for a business, it allows you to install trade fixtures. Therefore, anything that you attach to the building immediately becomes personal property because it was never intended to stay there. Does that make sense? Okay? Think of the logic of it when you go take the exam. Now, tenant fixtures. All of you are either tenants or landlords, right? So as a tenant, can you install something in your property right now? Say it again?
You can, but you're not supposed
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
I'm glad you said that. You can, but you're not supposed to. So if you can, but you're not supposed to, then you can't.
to, right?
All right. So here you go. Tenant fixtures can also be fixtures installed by a tenant in the residential rental property. Tenant fixtures, right? Including such items as bookcases. I cannot install bookcases in the apartment, right? Chandeliers, I cannot change what's there. Has to stay the same way. Or even stoves. Okay, careful. Look what it says next. I want you guys to highlight, underline, put stars, arrows, bubbles, whatever you got to put. Without, and this is the answer for the state exam, without any prior written agreement of the landlord, they become part of real estate and belong to, go ahead and change my apartment. I would love you to do all the changes you can to my apartment and improve it. But without my authorization, anything you do to my apartment becomes mine, not yours. So you cannot remove it at the end, you gotta leave it there.
Or put back what it was.
Hold on to that thought. If tenants are allowed to remove fixtures, they are expected to restore the property to its original condition before they vacate the premises. Now, when you remove a stove, how can you guarantee me that's going to be installed in the same condition that it was before?
I'll do an inspection.
Of what? I'm going to test every single thing on the stove?
I will.
Good luck with that. So here's the thing, landlords, something the tenants do not know, and tenants pay attention because it could affect you. If something is wrong with that stove, or fridge, or washer and dryer, whatever I installed before you got there and you used and then replaced, even if you put back the original, I am entitled to the newest and best. If you replace something without my authorization, I'm entitled to newest and best. Got it? Careful.
So the one that I had that I
Wait, before you say that, I just want to point this out again, right here. It says, without prior written agreement. If the landlord says, hey, it's okay, just replace the stove. Put it in writing. Put in writing that you're about to replace a stove. What are you going to do with the old one? And what are you supposed to do when you leave? Do you guys understand? So tenants, to protect yourselves. Landlords also to protect yourselves. Because that newest might not be the best. So, never know. Sorry, you were going to say?
So I was saying like, since they entitled to the newest and the best, that means he wouldn't want me to buy him a new one?
No.
No, you,
I'll
he was.
I can keep the one that you installed.
Or?
Or sue you for money for a new one. Simple. All right? Legal tests of a fixture. How do we figure out what is a fixture and what is not? And this is the very last thing, and then you guys can go. It says courts apply 4 basic tests to determine whether a disputed article is a fixture. That means part of real estate or removable personal property. Now these tests are based on intention of the party annexing the item. For instance, in the business, the trade fixtures, I told you guys, they were already intended to be removed at the end. Does that make sense? So they're not fixtures belonging to the landlord because the original intention was to remove. The method of annexation, how are they annexed or attached to the property? The adaptation of the article to real estate, how did it change the property itself? And finally, the relationship of the parties. So landlord-tenant or family members or friends, what's going on here? Does that make sense? So these methods will determine what was intended to stay, what was intended to leave. So, although these tests seem simple, there's no uniformity in court decisions regarding what constitutes a fixture. Articles that appear to be permanently affixed sometimes have been held by the courts to be personal property, and then of course, items that do not appear to be permanently attached have been held to be fixtures. So here's the example, so you guys understand this. An installation of wall-to-wall carpet. If I have wall-to-wall carpet, do you think that was intended to stay?
Yeah.
Of course, right? But in court, it could be interpreted as being an area rug. Yep. Because it depends on how it was attached. You got it? Next, a seller could remove it if it was not specifically stated in the listing or contract. Here's another one. A front door key. Look right here. Look at this key. Front door key. Is this movable? So, could this be a fixture? I mean, it's movable.
No.
Yeah.
It isn't what? It isn't movable? It's not a fixture? Chris.
It's a fixture because the lock is on the door.
Correct. It belongs to something that's permanently attached to the building. So even though it's movable, it could be considered a fixture. And that's why at every closing, the seller must bring what? The front door key. We're going to replace it right away, but I need to get into my house that I just bought. This belongs to the house.
So I can take a picture.
Huh? And so I can take the picture, yes. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say? So, some stuff appears to become attached and become part of real estate, but is really not. And some that it's personal property, it's movable, it's actually a fixture. Okay? Any questions? No? Awesome. I'll see you tomorrow. I did it. I finished 2 chapters.
So tomorrow, what chapter? This one?